Sonny. You've always known that.
Drop the gun and get on the ground.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vinny Apicella. Welcome to the Suds in the Squared Circle bonus edition. Today is Friday, February 3rd, 2023, and I just got off a great interview with Matt from 10th Floor Podcast, which is basically a General Hospital podcast that does come out every week. However, he does have experience in indie wrestling, all pro wrestling out of San Francisco. We do touch on that. But he's also, he's been a wrestling fan, whether in the past or a casual wrestling fan now. But I do want to just let you know it was a great interview. So I'm going to bring you that now. There was a glitch where my computer actually froze in the middle of the conversation. So I had to restart my computer. But either way, it was a great conversation. We'll be doing more in the future, but for right now, I'm going to take you to my interview with Matt from the 10th Floor Podcast, and enjoy. Hey, this is Vinny Apicella here with I am obviously from the Suds in the Squared Circle, which I'll probably end up doing the wraparound myself, but here with Matt from 10th Floor Podcast. Matt, how you doing today?
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been a long time coming. It's been something we've been looking at doing for a while, and
yeah, I think we started talking just before the holidays. I'm like, when all that rigmarole is over, we'll figure it out.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And this is something. Obviously, the premise of my show is Suds and the Squared Circle being soap operas and wrestling, and
yes.
You actually have. Besides doing the 10th Floor Podcast, you have some experience in indie wrestling.
Yeah. Super local indie wrestling over in the Bay Area.
Hey,
San Francisco Bay Area.
Well, that's awesome. And you actually sent me a picture last night of you taking a Twist of Fate from Matt Hardy.
Yeah.
Back from your, what was it, APW days?
Yeah, APW, All Pro Wrestling over there in Hayward, California, the world famous APW garage, run by Roland Alexander. Do you remember the Beyond the Mat documentary?
Yes.
It was a big thing in the late 90s. And the indie wrestling promoter that they followed in that documentary was Roland Alexander, who was my mentor.
Okay.
In pro wrestling. So in that they had the big storyline about the Rock and Mankind and the chair shots and all that, but they also followed the two guys that were going up and getting their tryouts.
Right. Yeah. I remember.
Which were students of Roland Alexander from the what was it? The APW boot camp is what they call the wrestling school. so that's my thing. That's where I learned it. That's where I learned it. And because Roland had achieved an amount of fame, so to speak, from that documentary, and through a number of successes with the students that he had coming through his school in Hayward, it attracted some people like Matt Hardy, who would come through the monthly show every great once in a while. We would get somebody who would come through like that. And I had the opportunity as a manager to, work opposite of him, annoy him enough to take a twist of fate there at the very end and make the people very happy at ringside.
So how did you get involved with the APW?
So it was local. So I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, grew up in Union City, California, not very far away from Hayward where the school was. Okay. And they would have a monthly show that was free in Hayward. And it was a wrestling show that they would have a Saturday once a month. And you show up, you have a good time. You watch the people who would train at that school, and they had their matches and their storylines. And I think the one that really hooked me in to keep going was when the Sandman showed up as a surprise, smashing beer over his head and just taking 15 minutes to just do absolutely nothing to collect his payday. And then, hit somebody with the kendo stick and then move on.
Exactly.
It was a great time, though.
His entrances were more more important than his matches.
Yeah, you know, I mean, sometimes you got wrestling characters out there that are mostly entrants.
Yeah.
And then once you get into the match itself, it is what it is. You know, you like it, you hate it, whatever. But they have that epic entrance. Sin Cara, epic entrance, using that trampoline to get into the ring. Goldust, epic entrance, which, of course, you know, I also love to watch him wrestle as well.
Of course.
Sandman, you know, the list goes on.
Of course.
But that's what hooked me in. And what really convinced me to join the school and say, hey, you know, I want to do this. I mean, I've been a wrestling fan my whole life. Why would you not want to, at one point, think I could find something to do here in this?
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody I went to high school with, I saw was working security. And if you're working security, that means you're a student.
Yeah.
And I saw him move from security to being a referee, and then from a referee to being a wrestler. And I'm like, if this dude from my high school journalism class can do this,
right,
so can I.
Yeah.
So I reached out and I signed up to the APW boot camp to be a referee.
Okay.
And as a part of the training, they also have promo classes, and they stuck me in front of a microphone, and well, the rest is history. They said a referee is not where you need to be, sir. You are a wrestling manager. And that's what I did for a number of years.
All right. So being a fan, who were some of your influences? I mean, getting the gift of gab, becoming a manager. Who were some of the managers previously that you had looked up to?
I mean, Bobby the Brain Heenan is probably the number one that everybody who would probably put at the top of their lists when it comes to who's the best of the worst. Who do I want to be?
Yep.
Bobby the Brain, and that's somebody that I very much looked up to. I read every book that he had written. I watched all of the DVDs and documentaries that had been put out, just so I could just absorb everything that he might have put out there that I could still consume. Because, you know, by the time I was getting into this, he was, I think he'd already passed away.
Oh, yeah.
By the time I even joined the school. So, you know, there was no way I was going to meet him and pick his brain or anything. So I had to pick it in some other ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bobby the Brain, of course. And then when it came to the actual like character that I wound up putting on, it was very much a conglomerate of a lot of just the weaselly, terrible managers that existed out there. You know, you get a little Johnny Polo mixed in with a little Jim Cornette mixed in with a little Bobby the Brain, and you get Matthew Thiel, the greatest mind in professional wrestling.
Hey, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you brought up Jim Cornette. Do you listen to Jim Cornette's podcasts?
You know, I don't spend a whole lot of time listening to podcasts. Not in the entire length. I'll give a podcast 10, 15 minutes or so. The person that I probably absorbed the most content from is Eric Bischoff.
Yep.
I just have a heavy respect for Eric Bischoff, more so than the general average person.
Yeah, no, I do too. I just actually had Guy Evans on, who co-wrote Grateful. And he and I mean, I had him on a few years ago on my previous podcast, and Eric Bischoff is probably one of my greatest not mentors, because I don't know him personally, but someone I look up to with a tremendous amount of respect. And I think it goes back to the Monday Night Wars era, because he actually did what nobody thought could be happening, was beat Vince McMahon in his own game. Yeah. And it was just absolutely fantastic. But yeah, no, I listened to 83 Weeks. I listened to Strictly Business as well, which is his newest.
He's got a lot going on right now when it comes to podcasting. He's like the Kevin Smith of the wrestling world when it comes to the amount of podcast he does.
But yeah, that's absolutely awesome. But Jim Cornette has his 2 podcasts as well.
Yeah, I know that he has things to say. That's for sure. Yeah, I haven't done wrestling or really watched it in any sort of detail in a little while. But if somebody makes a big wave, I hear about it still.
Well, that's fantastic. So you do have a tremendously popular podcast yourself, being the 10th Floor with your mother,
thank you,
Mama Cat. And I do listen to that faithfully. I don't get to watch it because of my schedule, but you guys are on YouTube. How did you get into General Hospital?
So soap operas is something that I've been watching all my life. So wrestling and soap operas is pretty much the two things that have been exposed to me since the womb. You know, I heard Erica Kane fighting with Jackson Montgomery as a fetus alongside Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man fighting for the heart of Miss Elizabeth. You know, I mean, I don't know exactly what years that kind of stuff happened, but you know, like it's just been a part of my life, soap and wrestling, you have like football families, baseball families. We had a wrestling family.
Yeah.
We made sure that we had WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble every year, no matter how hard it was.
Yep.
That is what we did. That's what we tuned into every week. Monday Night Raw or Monday Football. It was Monday Night Raw.
Absolutely. Yep.
Easy.
Yep.
So those two things have just been a part of my life, near and dear to my heart forever, and just woven into the fabric of just my family and how we engage and interact with each other and the things that we pursue that we enjoy. Kind of on my dad's side, it was more of the wrestling's focused things, and the mom's side, it was a little more on the soaps focused thing.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, I was watching wrestling as a little squirt with my dad and soaps as a little squirt with my mom, and just taking it all in there. If you go back to our podcast library, which you can find on YouTube and also on all of your podcasting applications, take a look. You'll go like to our very first podcast that I did with my mom like 3 years ago, and the quality is just nowhere near what it is today. We talked about my early exposure and the early memories of me and soaps. And the storyline that hooked me in as a young lad was Natalie in the Well on All My Children.
Okay.
So Janet, her evil twin sister, had chucked Natalie in the well and had posed as Natalie in Pine Valley, taken over her life. Classic soap, so villainous.
Yep.
And this was before Robin Mattson, who was famous as Heather Weber.
Yep.
So this was some actress way before even then. And ultimately, she was in the well for weeks, and it was I was just enthralled as a little child. When is Natalie going to get out of this well?
Yep.
And finally, they introduced the character Dimitri Merrick, who rescues her from the well, and Dimitri moves on to being a major prominent thing, and then Natalie, a couple of years, dies. But I was hooked at that point.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember, my mother was always the ABC soaps, All My Children, One Life to Live, General Hospital.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. She's always been a very big Erica Kane fan. So I got a lot of exposure to All My Children growing up. Although my soap fandom kind of started later on when I was probably in my 20s, when I actually got into General Hospital.
Yeah.
And One Life to Live towards the tail end, All My Children towards the tail end. But General Hospital's been the one constant. But you have been vocal that One Life to Live has been basically your favorite.
Well, All My Children was pretty much my favorite growing up. One Life to Live, my mom, really liked. So she grew up, the soaps have been woven in the fabric of our family, I guess even since she was a little child as well. So she'd rush home from school and make sure she was able to catch All My Children and One Life to Live, or catch an episode of General Hospital before moving on with the next part of her day. And so all of that was definitely a part of it. As for me, I wasn't really able to get into soaps in detail until I was an adult as well. I think that probably just comes with age, understanding, maturity, and time. And so, I'd catch like the summertime stories when I didn't have to go to school and stuff when I was a kid. But I watched that last year of All My Children in great detail and really loved it. If I had more of an emotional connection from childhood to One Life to Live, I would have given them that final year as well. Yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. But definitely was there for that last 12 months.
Yeah, you recently had
soapy nonsense.
Oh, absolutely. And you recently had Vincent Arizari on one of your podcasts.
Yeah. That was an amazing surprise turn of events for a special All My Children retrospective we were going to do.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. That was awesome. What an honor. But yeah, I get every time it gets brought up, which is seldom because it's not like I'm on every podcast out there. Thanks for having me. Yeah. I got to give thanks to his girlfriend who saw our advertisements for the All My Children special my mom and I were going to do, and she reached out to us saying, "Hey, if you were interested, I can ask Vincent if he wanted to come on." And I'm like, "Why would I say no?
Right,
should have just asked him first. What, are you crazy?" Yes, please. And we were able to arrange it. It was awesome. Vincent Irizarry, Dr. David Hayward from All My Children. I mean, who doesn't love Dr. David Hayward? And so just as like a dream interview, that was really nice to have. When Ma and I started talking about having the podcast a couple of years ago, recording our conversations, because it's not like talking about GH is new for us or anything.
Right. Yeah.
We thought, well, maybe other people find it interesting too. Let's record it sometime and see what happens. And the rest is history, folks. But we're talking, oh, it'd be great one day if maybe, maybe an actor would be cool. Wouldn't it be cool if Vincent Irizarry wanted to be on it one day? Blah, blah. And it was, and we got it. And so that was just amazing. Just what a great time.
It was good. I was able to get in and log on for a while myself to watch it. And I also listened to it on the podcast as well, podcast feed. Great episode. And, and not to mention Dr. David Hayward having, ties to Port Charles with Finola Hughes, character. So, and she went back and forth between all three of the soap operas on ABC. So it's just that common thread where you look at the universe of the ABC soap operas, and Port Charles being in New York is close to Landview being in Pennsylvania, and Pine Valley, I believe, is Pennsylvania as well. So it's all in that general vicinity. Although we haven't had too many All My Children crossovers once All My Children ended in Port Charles, as opposed to, like, you saw a lot of One Life to Live carryovers with Star and Todd Manning and Nora Buchanan most recently. I don't understand why that is when you had such a huge following that All My Children has.
You have to give that to Frank Valentini. He's the one, he ran One Life to Live. I think he was the last executive producer. And so I think that's just where his heart and his memories lie. That's where he wants to kind of give the first nod to. When it comes to All My Children characters, they have mentioned Sky Chandler and Erica Kane. Yeah, we haven't seen them, but they've mentioned, I think they mentioned Erica Kane twice in the last 5 years. So cool for that. And then they used Alex Devane way differently than ever before, but that was a character. But I would say that the answer is just simply Frank Valentini, the executive producer's heart lies in his memories of One Life to Live, and so that's where he's going to reach out first. We got a lot of actors for One Life to Live also now on the show as well.
Okay, so we're back. Brief technical difficulties there. But all right, so we were talking about One Life to Live and how there's a lot of characters on there. A lot of characters that did migrate over to General Hospital, not necessarily characters, but actors. But one thing I do want to go into is that you and your mom recently were able to attend a General Hospital fan event at studios not too long ago.
Yeah, that was a great time. Back in March of 2022.
Yeah, and that sounded like a lot of fun. You got to meet a lot of the actors there. Taj Bello was your favorite.
One of my favorites, absolutely.
So anyways, we were talking before the holiday, there's a lot of crossover in terms of the genres of wrestling and soap
absolutely. But they always called it the male soap opera, right? Wrestling
exactly. That's how I always used to define it whenever, my friends would be like, oh, why do you watch wrestling? Oh, well, it's a male soap opera. But there's a lot of crossover with the storylines, with the characters, character arcs and everything. And there's a lot of the terminology, like especially when I talk about the characters of General Hospital, being a heel or a baby face. Those are wrestling terms that don't.
Yeah, it's very easy to translate it over from wrestling over into soaps.
Exactly. And how they're gonna do this, how they're gonna the storyline plot and a heel turn, and one of the things that's there now currently is the quote unquote Cam heel turn.
Yes, the controversial Cam heel turn.
And you're right. It's a misnomer because he's the good guy in the scenario.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that got burned by Joss and Deck.
He's the Marty. He's the Marty of that team.
Exactly. Exactly. But I look at it as a different way because the fans, the audience, fandom, they're all rooting for Joss and Dex. So that puts them in that baby face.
It depends on where you're talking to them. Twitter, not so much. Everywhere else, maybe she's got some more friends up there.
Although there is a lot of I guess the Twitter
There is. It's funny because I talk about Twitter way too much for the limited window of Twitter that I actually have, because I am not deep into it, like so many other people are. So I'm sure as many of the Sprina fans that I see out there, there's just as many Jex fans speaking up and making their art and all that kind of stuff. I just don't see it for some reason. Twitter just doesn't expose that.
And it's weird how
I'm doing it wrong. It's me. It's me.
It's really weird how the Twitter algorithm works, but you know, I see, with Cam, I really hope that the character in general brings up that almost Steve Austin-esque type of anti-hero.
That is a good example. That's a great example of, I think, what people are trying to see out of Cameron. Not so much your so-called heel turn,
right?
But someone with a little more spunk to them. Someone
Exactly.
that'll randomly kick somebody in the gut and give them a stunner.
Yeah, exactly. Where he got burned. His first love broke his heart.
Oh yeah,
That,
what a tragedy. Oh God, poor guy.
Exactly. But I love your analogy of Adam Sandler and The Wedding Singer, and how he comes up and gets on stage, and all of a sudden it's just this
Just lets it out.
stinks, and
This big breakup song. Everybody knows all the dirt. I love it. I can't wait. I really hope so. I mean, they're doing the Nurses Ball and the 60th anniversary kind of all wrapped up into one ball together.
exactly.
So I mean, I'm hoping for major nonsense, just juicy, sudsy, I want to make a white Santa's beard out of the suds that are created from this epic event that is headed our way in General Hospital.
Yeah, and then the 60th anniversary, it's amazing because the 60th anniversary of General Hospital coincides with the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw, which just passed. Which is amazing that when you look at the history of television, and you've had the long running TV shows, and and just the art that goes into, like, for example, General Hospital being on 60 years, and the creativity where you're on 5 days a week. I mean, granted, it started off as a 30-minute show and then went to 45, and then now an hour. And think about taking out the commercial breaks, you have 36 minutes, but just the creativity that goes into that kind of show 5 days a week,
constantly having to churn something out.
Exactly. You give the writers a lot of credit, because they're the ones, and you had Fido Xavier on your show, who's one of the directors of the shows that's on there, on General Hospital. Just the work that goes into that to be able to produce that kind of effort daily.
It has to be. I feel as though it earns more respect than it's given sometimes, because it's very easy to criticize it. I mean, we all watch the show. It's super easy to criticize. It's incredibly easy. It's just, I guess it all depends on how you want to approach your fandom, how you want to enjoy things. And that's kind of something that I learned doing in wrestling as well, because there's a wide, vast, different audience out there. And even the people who are, this is great. I'm so glad I'm able to talk about this. Thanks for having me on. Being a part of the creative process of wrestling, you can see while these people are structuring these storylines and going out there and performing them and trying to get the emotional reactions and hit the beats that they're trying to do. They're very invested in trying to put on a great show, an entertaining show that you guys are going to enjoy. But we also recognize and realize that you can't make everybody happy.
Right.
And some people just approach things from a negative viewpoint, even though they're having a good time. It's just a part of their human nature. Not everybody does it that way, but it's a fact of life. And I think places like Twitter and social media and stuff have given those people a louder platform to speak than have ever existed before. And I think that's just kind of what it is.
I think that social media could ruin the fandom.
I don't think that it can. Not necessarily, because the fandom is so much more than social media.
Right.
And that's something that I'm learning doing the podcast. And that's something that I'm really starting to learn right now, figuring out all these microcosms of fandoms that exist with General Hospital. And I am sure that they exist in the wrestling world as well. Yes. I am just not plugged into it at all. But I am sure there's just as many people out there that are like, the bloodline is the greatest thing in the world. That matches the amount of people that are out there that are like, this is the worst trash that has been on TV since the demise of WCW. I'm sure that exists.
And
Excuse
you're
me.
absolutely right. And it's one thing that I don't, one thing that has evolved is be with the fans is I don't know whether it's a lack of the ability to enjoy a slow burn storyline.
Yeah.
Like you bring up the bloodline. The bloodline, that storyline's been going on for 2.5 years now,
Hmm.
and it's the hottest thing in wrestling, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
And it's something where you look at even soap operas where there gets to a point where you have a slow moving storyline. If the fans are invested in it, they'll go with it. Chicks
Yes.
in Brooklyn, for example, they're
Hmm.
playing, that whole, uh, are we or are we not together? It gets to a point where it's like, well, you don't care anymore.
Yeah. You are, you aren't. I mean, you kind of are. You just aren't talking about it.
Right. Exactly. And you get to a point where is it because that we're in a society now where everything's got to be fast paced, and you need the payoff
That
quicker?
I think that builds into it. The consumption of entertainment as a whole. Let's get nerdy here, like I do on the 10th floor. The consumption of entertainment as a whole, and I feel like an expert to a degree. I feel like I have enough credence to speak to something like this. Just being somebody who has consumed entertainment my whole life, and being one of those cusper generation people.
Yep.
I'm 36 years old, so I was there for antennas on TV. I had a black and white one when I
41,
was
so it's the
5,
same thing.
all the way to now where I don't even
Yeah.
have cable. So I've seen the swath of it and I've experienced it myself. So that's why I've decided that I can speak on it. But the consumption of entertainment has changed quite a bit over the last several years. Netflix ruined everything by giving everybody the ability to binge watch every single thing, dropping an entire season's worth of a story in one fell swoop,
Yeah.
so you could watch it in 10 hours and then go to work and be the most knowledgeable person ever. And because of that, a longer format thing like soap operas, people are seeing what they want to see, seeing the conclusions that they want to see, seeing the pairings they want to see, and the story beats they want to see, and they're getting impatient and they want to get there.
Mhm.
And in trying to make those people happy while also trying to fill 5 days worth of television, uh, I think that we're finding challenges in pacing, in moving things along in a way that is conducive to 365 days a year, but also keeping the people on the screen that the people want to see, interacting with who. God, I don't know how they can do it. Honestly don't. I honestly don't. I think slow burn is important. You take Trina and Spencer, for example. That's something that was able to keep everybody's attention.
Yep.
Hoping, waiting just for the moments.
Yep.
And it's really paying off. I think this week especially has really shown how important it was to kind of keep those characters in each other's radar,
Yep.
but not have them really in scenes together
Hmm.
until now.
Right.
I think that it really gave the actors a chance to really bond and create a real chemistry behind the scenes as friends,
Hmm.
so they can bring that to our television sets and create a very satisfying pairing, which is
And
what they are turning out to be.
and that pairing had one of the rarest things is that there was a recast in the middle of that storyline.
And it lost
Sydney Michaela,
no momentum.
It's something that I just never, it's amazing how it went from one actress to the other, from
Mhm.
Sydney to Tabiana, and the chemistry is still there,
Right.
which is very rare.
It's super rare. I've never, I mean, I'm not a big expert in soaps or anything like that, but I've never seen anything like it. Because we've seen recasts. We've seen recasts, especially, in the last couple of years. Drew, for example, Cameron Matheson is Drew. That recast has totally affected every relationship that the previous actor had established. I had totally forgotten that Drew and Curtis were friends until they were getting the tux fitting together, and Curtis wound up being, or Drew wound up being Curtis's best man. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
Drew was Curtis's best man at his previous writing with Jordan.
Right.
Billy Miller, of course.
I had totally, because he was friends with Billy Miller, not with Cameron Matheson. They hadn't done anything together really. Maybe a scene when Drew came back to town after getting rescued, but that was it. I had totally forgotten about that relationship. So yeah, the recasts do matter. And they really knocked it out of the park with it. you mentioned the convention, and we went to the
Yeah.
convention, and this was in the gap between between Sydney leaving and
Yep.
Tabyana Ali starting.
Right.
And so we hadn't seen a single scene of new Trina, but
Right.
old Trina had left. She had her last scene. And that was the questions that the Ashford panel had. You know, who's the new Trina?
Right.
What's she gonna be like? Tell me what you think of her. And everybody had glowing reviews and great things to say, as they would. But one thing that they said was when they were casting the new Trina, they made sure to screen test her to death. Not just with a character too, but with every character that Trina has supposed to be dealing with. Ava and Curtis and Portia and Spence and everybody screen tested with Tabyana Ali before they decided on that. So they were careful as hell to not ruin what they knew was very big and important in their hands.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
So, I mean, credence and kudos. But when it comes down to it, you know, you got to churn out these episodes 5 days a week. I think it's a little quick and hasty to criticize the writers. I think that's an overused phrase, just in my opinion. Yeah. While the writers put the words in the people's mouths, if you're going to criticize anybody about General Hospital and the stories they are able to tell, ABC Disney is who you should be criticizing, because ultimately they're the ones.
That do the green light.
When it comes down to it, the producers, writers, directors, everybody in the soap world has been working on soap operas their entire careers. Yep. It's not like suddenly these people don't know how to make a soap.
Right.
Something else is playing a factor, and it seems as though Disney is just like, make them pregnant.
Well, it's similar to, you know, going back to, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s with WCW, when the Time Warner merger happened, and Eric Bischoff, you know, basically said that there were some corporate people that came in that they wanted his storylines and scripts 6 months out. Professional wrestling doesn't work like that. No. You know, you can have a basic, like with WWE, they go from WrestleMania to WrestleMania, where you could have your WrestleMania main event in theory set by SummerSlam by August. But, you know, fan reaction as well as injuries, as well as other things play a part into it. So you can't have a script that much long.
100%. I really appreciate how Eric Bischoff was able to televisionize wrestling as well as he did. I really think that he kind of established a tone for TV wrestling broadcasting henceforth now until forever. And listening to his 83 Weeks podcast, it's 84, whatever it is. It's interesting how he refers to hiring wrestlers to play this part. And that sort of thing, because I never really thought about wrestling in those terms before, and it was fascinating to hear him put him in those phrases.
And it's weird, because that's the one thing that, you know, when you listen to wrestling podcasts and everything, when you look at wrestling compared to every other genre of entertainment, you don't look at wrestlers' characters as not being their genuine selves. And that's something that, in my opinion, is where kayfabe was dead back in the 80s, when Vince McMahon came out and said, "Oh, we're sports entertainment," and you know, and everything, and you are able to understand that, you know, somebody like Roman Reigns, who is a character that is played by Joe Anoa'i, you know, and he's not who he is on camera. You know, when you look at Maurice Bernard, he's not really a mob boss in real life. So what's, you know, that's where there's always been a difference. And I don't understand, or I still can't wrap my head around the fact that we don't look at wrestlers as actors. You know, is it because they're not involved with SAG? Is it because they're just a different form of entertainment, because it's presented as a live sports-based presentation? I still don't understand that, which is a good thing. But at the same time, could it be better as fans looking at it? Like, I guess, you know, it's just, it's that difference between, I'm watching wrestling, I'm seeing Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn, and I'm seeing Kevin Owens, and I know in my heart that they're portraying a storyline, but they're just actors. They're friendly behind the scenes. Then you look at General Hospital, and you see Carly and Nina, who are at each other's throats,
right?
And but yet you see the tweets where we accept the fact that Laura Wright and Cynthia Watros are friendly behind the scenes. We accept that.
Yeah.
But we accept that we know Laura Wright plays Carly on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. When
Is
it comes
because of the
to
Twitter handles, because you see Roman Reigns tweeting out instead of Joanna Hawaii?
I really think that has to do mostly with just the origins of the entertainment medium itself, because wrestling was originally presented as something real, and even all the way through the Monday Night Wars, I feel as though there was still an element of kayfabe that existed in there. Nowadays, I feel as though it's totally gone. I checked out at the very beginning. I checked out the Royal Rumble this year, just because I'm like, hey, I've got a Peacock subscription. I love the Royal Rumble. Let's tune in. And I was blown away, honestly, with the intro being this the country artist Hardy, I think his name is. And he was sitting there in a chair being like, wrestling's great. What's going to happen tonight as these gladiators fight each other? And I'm like, this opening is so entertainment. This doesn't feel to me no longer like we're getting ready for a big fight. This is like a show immediately. The feeling that I got from it. And that's very different than the wrestling that I used to watch. And I don't remember what point we were trying to make at that point. I just started to just ramble as I do. But things have changed, we're talking about actors. And so the whole, are they actors? The whole entertainment presentation of wrestling is relatively new. When I was learning things and coming up in the wrestling world, no denying it, we were all actors. We were all being something that we were not in real life. And that was why we were doing wrestling, was because that was our avenue into playing something that is larger than life and going out there and putting on a great show and being superheroes, stronger than everybody. You can't do wrestling in real life. If you got in a real fight and tried to body slam somebody, you'd lose. Don't do that. So you get to go out there and be superhuman and fly off the ropes and be as rich or as evil or as good or as conniving or whatever it is that you wanted to be that you weren't really in real life. To add on to that, with wrestling, there is still a great element of who you are in real life that is in these characters. It is kind of who you wish you could be, or this person that you're able to let out without trying is kind of what it is. So I don't know if that feeds into it as well, because at least on the level that I did, I don't know what they're doing in WWE when it comes to like, all right, so in real life your name is Carl, but out there you're going to be Sheamus the Irishman. Here's your script, learn it and get an accent. I don't know if it's to that level. It probably is. So yes, 100% actors. My level, very much a blend of athletics, actor, all that kind of stuff, because if you don't have the athletics, then you're not going to be able to really succeed in wrestling, because you have to be able to do that. But to that same note, if you weren't Arnold Schwarzenegger, you wouldn't have been the Terminator. You're not going to cast Rob Lowe as the Terminator. So yes, no, maybe it's just we need more people like Batista to come out and really show the range that some of these performers can really bring in mainstream media that people can appreciate a little bit more than wrestling. Because wrestling, I think,
more. I think
wrestling is still kind of silly, right? Out there to people. Oh, you like wrestling? Oh, that's fun, I guess.
Well, I mean, with the success of Young Rock and The Rock in general, and you brought up Batista, John Cena, even Becky Lynch is starting to get into acting a little bit. She was, one of the Marine movies, and then she was in Young Rock playing Cyndi Lauper. So it's, as we see more crossover, I think eventually you'll see that that wall break down. I think, because you're right. Back in the 80s, you had a handful of wrestlers that were in movies, Hulk Hogan being in very many straight to video, straight to DVD, whatever type movies, but when the Rock became the biggest entertainment superstar that's out there now, it made that change where now it's more accepted. Batista getting that role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that, he was in one of the Bond movies, and now with his newest role being a more serious style role. You're right. It does. It shows that range, whether it's not just a bodyguard, not just an action hero. Now it's dramatic roles.
Or just like a goofy cartoon character like Mr. Nanny.
Exactly.
Hulk Hogan got those movies not necessarily because he was the greatest actor in the world or the next action superstar. It's because he was just a big, muscular, goofy guy. Suburban Commando. Come on. I loved that thing when I was a 10,
Exactly.
But yeah, if there's two moments to point to and two people to point to, it's definitely Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and Batista. When Rock got his solo outing with the Scorpion King, he completely changed what could happen when it comes to a wrestler turned actor going on into the future. People love They Live or whatever it is with Roddy Piper. People love Suburban Commando, but those movies are not major summer blockbusters like the Scorpion King. And of course, Batista getting Drax in the Marvel movies, huge, enormous. And honestly, I can't wait to see what Batista's going to come out with because, controversial statements here on Suds in the Squared Circle. I don't know if you'll agree with me, Vinny, or not, but Batista's got a little bit more range when it comes to his performances than Mr. Rock does. So I'm really curious to see what his future holds.
I tend to agree with you. And I think it's because The Rock has got his hand in so many other facets than just acting now. He's him and his group bought the XFL, so that's coming up this year. And not to mention, there's always that rumor where if anybody's going to buy the WWE, it's going to be The Rock.
Wouldn't that be something? Oh my god!
It would. That's one of the bigger headlines going around now is whether or not the WWE is going to be sold and who it would be that bought the WWE and how that would affect the industry in general.
When it comes to media coverage, that would probably be the move. When it comes to just like what just happened in the world of professional wrestling, y'all, would be Dwayne Johnson buys WWE.
A couple months ago, or a couple weeks ago, I should say, there was a big firestorm where some dirt sheet put out that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia bought WWE.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, the backlash that rumor started. CNBC debunked it the next morning, and it's like, it was one dirt sheet. Right?
I remember.
Claimed you knew something and went public with it, and it just caused the media backlash.
I had a conversation at work with a friend of mine who's into similar entertainment. He doesn't like soaps, but wrestling and sci-fi and other little things that he likes, that I like, he likes. And so we were talking about this, and this was when the Saudi, it was fact at that point. Saudi Arabia Prince was buying WWE, no doubt about it. And we were talking about it like, what? This is not. We bought it, hook, line, and sinker. We're just like, I can't believe this is happening. This is nuts. And we're like, what's gonna happen about like the Fox deal? Are gonna be okay with this? Is Disney cool with this? I don't know what's going on. And we're like, well, Disney likes money, maybe they don't care. And then ultimately we were like, can I swear on this? I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ultimately, we were like, Vince McMahon is a bastard. Oh my God. He left to come back to get his daughter to quit, to push Triple H out, to sell to a Saudi prince and say, screw y'all, goodbye, I'm taking my money. What a dick. And of course, it turned out to not be the case at all.
Well, it's funny because, like that week, Eric Bischoff, and John Alba came out with like 2 or 3 episodes of Strictly Business because of the rumor mill and the sales and everything that was going on. And, they pointed out, all the backlash with Saudi Arabia and all the human rights violations that Saudi has and, all the politically incorrect stuff that they're into. And like, well, what's going to happen? Well, when it comes down to it, the public investment fund, which is what supposedly bought the WWE, they invest in Disney, they invest in Fox, they invest in all these other things. So it's like you're saying that you're going to boycott WWE because they're going to be bought by this. Well, you still use Twitter, you still use Facebook, you still watch Disney, and they're in all of this. And it's just the backlash where people just go around the perception is reality.
Well, to point to previous conversation that we were just having on this very podcast, that kind of shows the dangerous underbelly that exists when it comes to social media, and I think that also comes to play when it comes to the type of stories that we're able to see on General Hospital. I know it has to come to play when it comes to the types of things you're able to see on wrestling. I mean, I kind of stopped watching when they went back to the G format. You know, when Linda was running for office, and they were just like, nothing, you can't do nothing anymore. I'm just like, okay, guys. All right, I'm backing off. 3-hour Raw and nothing happens. I don't have that kind of time in my night anymore. It's kind of what happened to me. No offense to anybody that's able to do it. It just wasn't my cup of tea no more.
Well, like with me with Raw, I watched the Hulu version, which is 90 minutes. Yeah. So it cuts out a lot.
There you go.
There you go. A lot of stuff.
I take YouTube bits now. I watch the Reliving the War on YouTube. That's a good time. But to back to the point, the dangerous part of social media and what kind of feeds into maybe some of the limited storytelling that we're able to get on GH right now is if you do light enough fire on Twitter, then the mainstream media picks it up. Oh God, I sound like a conservative talk show host right now. The mainstream media picks it up and they fan the flames of that Twitter thing, and that's the only thing it's about. It's all about Luke raping Laura, which it isn't the case. That's been so done. That has been so resolved on General Hospital since then. But if you bring it up and it lights enough flames, then it becomes what the show is about again. And what can you do other than kind of do your best to avoid that as much as possible? Do you lean to people saying this show is bad, because then that's not going to get picked up by Newsweek? I don't know. I'm not running the show, so I don't know. Exactly. I don't know how those decisions are made. I can only speculate from the outside.
One of the bigger things that's been on Twitter that I've seen. Okay, so we got 10 more minutes. So one of the bigger things that I've seen is with the Willow storyline. I saw somebody point out this is the wrong time in history for someone to be pro-life on TV because Willow refused to get an abortion. She refused to get the cancer, the chemo before the second trimester.
Right.
I'm like, try to leave politics out of it. Oh, because that's right. Because I said, what's so wrong about being pro-life in this day and age? And that's like, oh, well, with the reversal of Roe versus Wade, and with this and the anti-women movement and and I'm like, leave politics out of it. I mean, there are people in real life that are pro-choice. There are people that are pro-life. So just leave it out of it, and if you're watching because you want to push your own agenda, well, then you're not really a fan.
It's interesting. Sometimes, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, there's a wide variety of people who consume entertainment in a wide variety of ways, who get different things out of it, who relate to it in different ways, who pull their own personal experiences and find themselves or they don't find themselves in these characters. Or whatever, and with Twitter, it's just an ability for somebody to be able to talk about it. That's the main thing. So, pro-life, not pro-life, pro-choice, all of that kind of stuff. That's totally up to you. It is what it is. Exactly. Leave the politics out of it. I think it's probably the easiest thing in the world when it comes to just avoiding conflict in general. But I understand what they're saying. I understand the point of view that they're coming to. But what I think, though, is this person might be missing, and I don't know this person at all. I don't even know their Twitter handle, so don't take this personally if you hear this. Might be missing the writer's perspective, the story point of view of Willow pretty much just wanting to do nothing other than just have this baby. I'm not going to even take a 1% risk of anything going wrong with this. I've already lost one child. I'm not going to lose another.
Exactly.
What was lacking, I think, and I tweeted about this, you probably liked it. What was lacking was direct dialogue about that. There was no tension between her and Michael, where he's like, why are you not making these choices? Why are you not making the right choices in my mind? And for her to say, well, because of this and the history and all of that, I'm not going to take a 1% risk. I think that part was missing when it comes to telling Willow's story through this, which allows personal interpretation. Like, well, she should have done this. I would have done this. Right. She didn't do this. Therefore, this is bad.
Yeah.
Because we really don't know what's going on in her head because they didn't say so.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to have on you, General Hospital.
We're going to have to do this again at some point. But before we do end this and this interview, let everybody know who does not listen to the 10th Floor podcast.
Oh, yeah.
They can find you.
Well, you can find us at youtube.com/10th Floor Podcast. We're on 11 a.m. Pacific every Sunday morning, unless my mom's being a grandma, and then we'll pick another day of the week. We also go on live randomly every once in a while to just talk about stuff because we want you to watch us. We want the YouTube subscriptions to go up, and we want the hours to go high. And, I'm not going to hide that. It's all selfish or personal gain. Please watch it. Please watch me for me. No, it's because you're going to have a great time. I have a great conversation every week with my mom. It's we talk about GH life, with the 70s, 80s, 90s, all that kind of stuff. Catch us YouTube. We're on Twitter at 10th Floor GH, which is a little bit different than the YouTube handle. A 10th Floor Podcast on YouTube, 10th Floor GH on Twitter. And you can find us on every podcasting platform out there. I've done a lot of work making sure that we are proliferated out there on every app that I could possibly have hooked up into. So if you happen to not find us on your preferred podcasting application, you can reach out to us on Twitter at 10th Floor GH and let me know, and I'll point you in the right direction or get it added to that app that you're looking for.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. We will definitely have to do this again at some point.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to talk about, right?
There is.
We didn't even talk about my favorite time of wrestling, which was the early 2000s.
Absolutely. Well, there's a cliffhanger for the next time we get to chat.
All right, man.
So it's been great. Have a great night. Thank you for joining.
All right. Thank you.